second video I've ever made was why I moved so much in 2 years. This video is an update why I moved so many more times after that in a 5-year total span, including those 2 years. This is an update of 3 years of why I moved 5 more times. I think 5 to 7 more times. There's 2 unofficial places that's on here. I don't fully count them because they're really in between states. One of them includes being on a couch for a very unexpected amount of time. The second was sleeping in 24-hour places wherever I could. I guess this is my version of tea. I don't like to talk shit. I don't like to talk down on these people that I lived with. I just like to say what happened. The help that I felt was given during my homelessness was helpful initially, but how it ended showed their intention more than, I don't know. Why I moved from Calgary in 2019 September. Ultimately, I felt very trapped. That life was going nowhere but down. As soon as I turned 20, I knew I wanted to be pregnant. When I turned 21, I didn't see a future for myself. I initially left to figure out what was wrong with me. What was wrong with me? For years, that's all I repeated to myself. I knew my family was part of the problem, hence the drastic move, which is all the way to the other side of Canada. I felt the pressure to help everyone in the family with their stuff. Never did I feel like they asked me what I needed. As soon as I had my car at 17, my first job at 16, it felt like, oh, okay, yeah, we definitely don't need to worry about her. We never had to worry about her much growing up because she's the oldest. She's supposed to have it all together. Now that she's, self-sustainable, let's, rely on her even more. It's hard to see. Before moving away from Calgary, I also ended 3 months before a long-term relationship of 6 years. After the breakup, I felt pretty unmotivated as well. I was thinking, who would even date me anyways? Who would even want me anyways? My self-worth was pretty low after. I remember the breakup made me to feel so bad. I didn't feel like there was much people on my corner. At the time, it felt like one of my closest friends were in my corner, which was all I needed. Though I spent a lot of time in groups of friends, they were not happy with it. It was like my breakup with him shifted the dynamics of groups around us, and for some reason people cared that fucking much. At this time too, with the friend group, it was already changing a little bit before the breakup. The breakup signified the whole dynamic change for sure with my main group of friends, which at the time was ultimately his main group of friends. It was his high school friends and then their girlfriends. When I announced that I wanted to move, I didn't hear from them after. Announcing my move and actually moving of the 3 months, I just decided to spend time with people, who would accept me, who would want me around. I was making new friends at the time. It was friends of my group. It was like mutual friends of us, and it was just expanding from there. There were people I got to say goodbye to and spend time with before I left, but it wasn't the people I spent like 5 years with. No one of that group said bye to me, except my ex. But I already knew that me and him would be okay after our breakup. We were such a friendly relationship the whole time. I didn't doubt that it was going to start to be, a toxic thing after. After all those endings, it just didn't feel like there was anything for me. My grandparents weren't living in Calgary. They were retiring back to Laos, but they were a little bit disappointed. They wanted to rely on me to have a place to go to when they wanted to decide to visit Calgary. When I wasn't that source, my grandma made me feel really bad about it, but my grandpa was pretty supportive. In the end, my grandma did end up supporting it. She was like, if you're happy, you're happy. That's what I did appreciate with my grandparents at the end of the day. Like, even when I dropped out of post-secondary, like college, I was so scared to tell my family, and they gave me the best reaction when I actually expected them to give me the worst. Having their support, at least, to move was all I needed. I just felt like Calgary was full of outdated obligations. My comforts in Calgary were maxed out intoxication. When I drank, I went for a pure blackout. I didn't go to have casual drinks. I didn't understand the concept of having a casual drink. For me, if I'm drinking, I am drinking till I cannot move. That was my mentality the last 3 years of Calgary. dancing in clubs and then working long shifts. I didn't sleep, burnt out in all ways. Soon after, everywhere I went just felt sad. This invoked a lot of memories that I just wasn't enough. Grew up in the more ghetto side of Forest Lawn, Dover, Marlborough. I had 3 different homes I went in between with my families. So those were the main ones. And those are like the main ghetto ones. Not main ghetto ones. I don't know if there's worse than that, to be honest. Those neighborhoods were definitely made fun of in richer communities because of how ghetto they were. With that, I grew up in a very lack mindset. I think when people are really used to seeing a community grow up, it's easy to compare each other with how successful you end up being, always with material success. Made friends with people all over the city, so I had rich friends as well. It was a hard dynamic to be in. No matter where I went, it was just so evident that I was poor. Like, if these people were gonna take me to nice places, they would pay for me and go with them. I would feel ashamed, just use up like half my paycheck just to go with them and do something. Weird validation thing. That's how I feel about my hometown. I remember the last year that I was there, I told the closest people in my life that I was having a really hard time. Having ending of life thoughts. I was starting to drink alone. I was overworking to distract myself. Almost felt like no one cared. I saw how people reacted to other people in the group's problems, and not to say mine were worse. I was telling my friends I wasn't seeing my life go anywhere. Just to watch them just not do anything, it was just hard. I get it if it's too much. I get those things are really hard, like heavy to handle. I guess I had the expectation that it would be reciprocated because I was there for similar moments of theirs. It was really hard to watch me go through it alone after being there for people in that group. When there was a concert, because I was getting into K-pop, GOT7 was going to Toronto, Pride was happening, and we had a friend there that was open to, you know, celebrating Pride with us and showing us around, hostessing down to visit Toronto. And while I was there, the only thing I heard in my head was, you need to save yourself now, move. And that's all I heard. Looking at my best friend at the time and just looking at her and be like, I'm moving here. Feeling her complete disappointment and fear, sadness, but also she was happy for me because she knew what I was going through. A year before moving across cities by myself, I never thought I even wanted to move out of Calgary ever. I was definitely someone who was okay with living there the whole life at one point. I feel like the move in itself needs to be celebrated again. It was so lackluster, and I just want to celebrate how I did something so big like that by myself. The way that I left, it was just such on a drunk high, just partied the whole time. The last week that I was there, I don't think I remember being sober. Even up to the point of the airplane, I drank 2 hours leading up to the airplane. I was not present as I was leaving. I couldn't even fully function saying bye to the people that actually came to say bye. Out of there. I think with this little blurb here, this video is gonna end up being 2 parts. Just trying to make this very short. I can't help but get into the feelings and memories that are coming up as I'm speaking on it. I do have the draft written and they're very short point form. It's okay. I don't relive these anymore with pain. I'm trying to rewire things with celebration. Even when I arrived, it was very sad, just in total, but I'm gonna get into that with the next part. When I moved from Hamilton on Delawana Street in 2019 November. Mind you, I left Calgary in September. Did I move out of my first house in November? Yes. I got kicked out after a month of moving in, a little bit over a month. It was a newly painted and furnished room, but it wasn't worth the hassle. It was a blessing in disguise because that room was haunted. That room was haunted, and I know that's why they gave me that room. The people that I had moved in with, the reason why I felt a little bit of ease to move across the country is because I had family friends between Calgary and Ontario throughout their childhood. At one point, when their dad lived with my dad, it was at a time that they were also in Calgary, or whenever they visit their dad. I've known them for a long time. I've known them since I was at least 7. They had drama with people I was working with. Here's the catch. I got this job before I even went to Ontario. It was a serving job and I got it while I was in Calgary, which is why I got so excited. I was like, oh my God, I got a job right away. Coincidentally, it happened to be with people that they had beef with. At the same time, their cousin had also worked at that restaurant. I first went to that restaurant. They were really excited to know that they knew someone that they could also like help me mesh into the city with. That cousin was still friends with the person that they were beefing with. At the end of the day, like, I was new to the city. That person that they were beefing with was way more welcoming and nicer to me than my roommates were. My roommates were like, yeah, don't hang out with them, blah, blah, blah. But then we would never hang out and do anything together. I would go downstairs in the living room with them and we would just sit there. We would just sit there and watch TV. But these new people that were asking me to hang out, they were inviting me to go eat, go smoke shisha, go do this, go do that. And it was such a welcoming thing. Really appreciated that. As much as my roommates were like, we're trying to protect you from this person. First of all, I know how to protect myself. And maybe at that time I didn't have like the best boundaries or discernment still. For people to say, I'm looking out for you, when they're clearly not, when it's just out of their own interest, it's just sad. Super manipulative as well. They gave me a reason why they were beefing. My intuition always felt like there was some parts missing of the story. My roommate that was actually involved with the other person that I was working with, I know she was lying. I know she was lying about the story and trying to cover up her ass. That's why she was talking so much about that situation. Convinced me that her way was like the only perspective. Talking to the other person and talking to other people involved, I was like, no, I think you're lying. She has a history of cheating on her man, so. Even when I came to Hamilton, they weren't even at the airport. I had to remind them that I was at the airport. They forgot that I was even coming. What was a little bit sad was this was such a big move for me. Kind of anticipated for anyone to kind of be like celebrating this big move. I wasn't close with them or anything, but I was just expecting some kind of welcoming. They called an Uber for me, and then when I got to the house, they were just all chilling in the living room, just sitting there. They showed me to the room that I was staying in, completely empty, like absolutely no furniture in there. They're just like, yeah, here's your room, here's your space. Sorry, we were actually planning to get like a bed at least for you. Feel free to like hang out with us in the living room. I think because I was already so hungover that day that I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a nap in one of your rooms and call it a day. At nighttime, we ended up at one of their friends' house to drink for a bit, and then that was kind of like the first day that I got there. They continued to show me little effort for weeks. Though I was, doing my best to not fully hang out with this person and whoever they were associated with, their cousin would ask me to hang out with them after work. It felt so nice at the time to be invited to things, feel included, so of course I said yes. Celebrating Thanksgiving in Canada is in October. At the restaurant, they were doing an event. It felt like a cool way to get to know my new teammates too. I loved back then to kind of bond with alcohol. So my surroundings on my Insta story, they saw my Insta story and they saw that guy was sitting at my table with a lot of other people and their cousin. My roommates didn't talk to me the same for a couple days after. It was so annoying. I couldn't even figure out why they all of a sudden iced me out and ghosted me. Left me feeling really weird in the house. Just put two and two together. I was like, oh, they probably fucking saw the Instagram story. I addressed it to her. Sorry, you probably saw that person in my story. And then they tried to give me a lecture about it. Always depended on one of their moods all the time. There was 4 of them. There was like, my family friends were 2 girls and then they had their boyfriends at the house, their unit, the 4 of them. The one girl's decision on how everybody operated. Me, you can't do that with me, sorry. There's just so many expectations they had for me, and they were definitely trying to control me without even trying to see what I wanted as a person. They weren't even trying to be a friend for me. They were just trying to control what I can do in the city. I remember one of their lectures, they sat me down and if you're gonna choose to continue hanging out with these people, there's no point in all of us associating with you. That's how we operate in Hamilton. We're very loyal, tight-knit. So if you fuck with one of us, you fuck with all of us. What the fuck? I came from a big city, Calgary. I know the group mentality. If one person's out of the box, like we're gonna completely ice them out. I've been in stuff like that. When I saw them doing it to me, when I just left Calgary for one of those reasons of that group mentality, lost all respect for that. You're gonna try to sit down and lecture me here about being friends and you don't even know how to be a friend to me. You don't even try to get to know me. You're just telling me what to do. No respect for you guys. Breaking point was one day after work, a really long shift. It was a 10-hour shift for their cousin and I, and we were fucking tired and we wanted to celebrate. It was a Friday night. We didn't have our next shift till Saturday night, and to us that's like a break. We went out for shisha, me and him, and yes, those other people did come and join us. Roommates called me and they're like, are you out with them? And I was like, not gonna lie about it, yeah, I am. Okay, we're going to Japan tomorrow. We expected that you guys wanted to hang out with us instead of hanging out with them, but we see that where your loyalties lie. We see that you're choosing them over us. First of all, I didn't know you guys wanted to fucking hang out. I never do. I never know when. You guys never say anything. You just expect people to gawk over you and always ask you what you're doing. You don't care what other people are doing. Because you're doing something, you expect people to show up. That's fucked. I know that they were planning to do this whole thing before Japan. It was just making food at the house and eating, which I understand quality time is great, but how did I know they even wanted quality time with me at that point? At that point, only quality time under their direction. I was already a little bit tipsy at this point when I was listening to them say it. Something about hearing that kind of stuff for me doesn't make me sad, it makes me angry. I got really prideful. Okay, I'll be out of your guys' hair by the time you're back, no worries. More reasoning of why they're kicking me out. While they went to Japan, as soon as they left, I started moving my stuff out. I had a freak out and their cousin ended up offering me a place to stay at their house. I was freaking out. I was like, I just came to this new city and they're kicking me out. What the fuck am I supposed to do? At that time, I didn't have a car. I was actually financing their car. I was giving them payments for their car, and that car was a Lexus. That wasn't even sustainable for me anyways. I was using that, since it was my car at that time, I was using that car to move. Midway in their trip, they're like, you're still using our car. Okay, sorry, my bad. I returned their car as soon as, like, the next day. And that's when I just started making game plans with my new roommate, which is with their cousin. Their cousin was only living in a 1-bedroom apartment, a small one downtown. Mommy was staying on a couch. At that time, I truly didn't mind. Anywhere was fine with me. See that contrast, you know? Like, I was staying in a house with them and then I moved into that. But it was such a blessing in disguise because me and their cousin ended up becoming really close really fast. Actually, a familiar kind of connection I was used to. We would have intense shifts, long hours on our feet, and then afterwards we would go drink. Me and him did that a lot together. Made a game plan. He helped me figure out the routes of taking transit. So helpful. He was taking transit. When we went to work, when we had similar shifts, we would go to work together, leave work together. Used to the transit system for a couple months before I was able to finance my own car. Around December, and I moved there in September. I actually liked how I learned how to transit again. I know that it's not something I enjoyed while I was in Calgary. And as soon as I got my car, like, I never took transit again. Nice to experience it again in a new city. They live a very superficial life. And it almost felt like no matter what I could do as a friend, because I didn't have the money that they were having, didn't get the fast money and didn't want these luxurious brand items, they would have all these luxurious brand items and fucking throw it all over their house everywhere. Like, they don't even take care of their stuff. So what's the point of trying to look cool in front of your friends when you don't even take care of your shit? Getting all this fast money for this fucking 3,000 bag and you're just fucking throwing it like under all your clothes you're never gonna fucking see again until you go out with the girls and you want to take pictures. Oh my god, where's that bag? Where's that bag? That has never been a lifestyle for me. And while I was living with them, I did feel so much insecurity about, should I try to live up to that kind of lifestyle while I'm here? Should I try to change into that? Would people like me if I did that? Would people like me if I got into this fast money? It's so frustrating. I just never truly felt accepted. So, you know, at the end of the day, their cousin gave me more of like heart compatibility than they did, but not actually help me build roots or anything like that. They just helped me be introduced to their cousin, who I don't speak to presently. I do want to say it was so gratifying to have someone like him after all that. So I moved out of that house after a month. When I moved from Cathcart Street to Hamilton in 2020 May. So this was the place where I was staying in the 1-bedroom apartment, sleeping on a couch. Obvious place that I was gonna leave. I wasn't planning to set roots here. I knew this was very temporary. This place was cockroach infested the entire time. I knew that moving in, having no place to go other than that. It was just something I was like, okay, I can vibe with it. If he's already vibing with it, I can vibe with it. It got worse. as the months went on. First little bit in being there felt like it was both of us tackling the problem. When it was becoming harder between us, the cockroaches felt more unbearable as the connection felt more tension filled. Before that though, we worked together, we partied together, we did a lot of things together. Having that and becoming close friends so fast in a new city was so welcoming and a blessing. As I was finding my own footing in the city, I needed my own room at one point. It was a time where I was wanting to meet new people, see them from dating apps. This was a time I was definitely inviting the hoe phase. Really awkward to kind of set that up, having the living situation I was in. That was another reason why I wanted my own room. That was a big motivator actually. Another one was just to simply like close the door after finishing work. That was the thing. No matter if I wanted my own space, just to like have that, I never could. I felt like if I did want my own space, it would be taken personal. I just didn't like that fact. I didn't like when people thought I was shutting them out because I wanted alone time. Something I recently healed from, not being able to be myself, and that was just simply wanting alone time. They kept saying they wanted to move out with me. I think around month 4 is when I wanted to move out. Not only were we partying together, but we would be hosting those events. People would be standing, sleeping, sitting, spilling drinks, spilling food where I slept. It was already so bad with the cockroaches too that it was like a continuous laundry experience. The laundry wasn't the most convenient thing to get to. It's annoying to be always like lugging that stuff around. I know we had our carry basket, so it wasn't like I was always just carrying and trying to maintain hygiene and cleanliness. The reason why we kept stopping finding an apartment though was because he would always get really attached to his apartment that we were staying at. It was his first apartment he ever got by himself. I do understand that sentiment. I am an eldest sibling as well, as much as he is, so I get having that thing on your own and feeling that freedom. I was cheering it on. I felt bad that I was intruding on that new freedom of his, because it was a new experience that he had gotten that apartment. It wasn't until about month 5 or 6, leading into month 7, where things were definitely getting rocky between us. It was starting to change a lot. I was stopping partying a lot. This is where we actually had like our biggest difference. We bonded over drinking a lot, and when I stopped doing that, it caused an obvious shift. My friend group at the time was being made fun of for being sober. A friend of ours booked a vacation spot. I went and he decided to stay back. During that time, I learned that he had been telling that friend group of ours he never really wanted to move. He was just saying that to me. He's always wanting to stay in his own apartment. And that hurt. Why were you even telling me that? I could have just started looking on my own as I was. It just felt like a crazy childhood thing at the same time. He did resemble a family member very hard for me. They want you to do good in life, but they don't want you to be far away from them. They don't want you to do better than them. They just want you to do okay. They want you to do enough where your connection is transactionally reciprocal. You could pull your weight with money, but don't leave. The reason I left so abruptly, as soon as I heard that they didn't want to even leave with me, our connection is actually way more toxic than I realized. Because when I stepped away and spent a couple days with my other friends, when it got to about month 5 and 6, his reactions after drinking got really bad. Almost felt like he really wanted to black out every single time, and I'm familiar with that. I've been there. When I saw it, I was like, okay, this feels like that's what's happening. I couldn't be the support at one point. Normally, other nights, I have definitely tried to be there for people who are very blackout drunk. Triggers, emotions. I've been there for people and trying to calm them down. Been the person who tries to calm people down when they're fucking wild, when they're drunk. There was this one night where I knew I just couldn't be that person for him anymore. So bad. The part that really sucks for me, when you drink to blackout, you don't remember much the next day. He would never remember how he treated me during those times. I don't know if it wouldn't be fully remember or just didn't want to take accountability at the same time. It really sucked. If I wasn't bending over backwards trying to be that person to get him out of his fucking hellhole when he's drunk, then I'm a horrible person. Then I'm a bad friend. I'm not a ride or die if I can't get you out of that hellhole. It used to really weigh on me, you know? I really wanted to be someone who was a good friend to people. That's all I've ever wanted, was someone to be that good friend for myself. An above and beyond friend for people who didn't do half as much as they were expecting of me and received of me. When people provide me something, it's like I automatically have to give them me and my friendship, my light, my energy, because they provided me shelter. Saying it like that kind of makes me a little bit sad, because that's actually felt like every place I've been in until now. Long story short, that connection became very emotionally abusive. That is the biggest reason why I left, but that wasn't a reason I could admit to. I just felt the safest answer and a realistic answer was that I needed my own room. Within healing now, looking back at it, is me leaving an emotionally abusive connection. The timing for everything just went one right after the other. I came back from the vacation with the other friends. I couldn't shake off what I learned from them. I couldn't shake off how true it felt that he never wanted to actually move out with me. That part felt so true that I was like, I need to leave now. Another coworker I was getting close with at the time, she was living at a student house. She was going to the university. We were having a conversation about like where I could move to. She recommended a student house. Never thought of it. Well, I'm not a student and I wasn't a student. She was telling me that they have allowed people to live in student houses before, just follow the vibe of the house. As long as you get along well with the landlord and the roommates, I'm sure it's like okay. Interestingly enough, I asked her, do you know any houses or do you have any rooms yourself? And she's like, actually, I just moved into a new house and there's a new room and there's another room. What are the coincidences? I'm freaking down to see it. The next day from coming after the vacation, I went to go see the house. It used to be a sunroom outside of the house a little bit. To this day, it's the most interesting room I've ever stayed in. The ceilings gave cottage barn. The height of the room gave beautiful sunroom. In the winter, because it's not connected to the house, there was no heat, so I had to get my own space heater and try to like go off of that. And it was cold. It was really, really cold. Rent was $500. Helped the previous roommate in the one bedroom with $300 a month after like month 2, after realizing, okay, I'm being there, help a little bit. Paid $500 for a full room. Easily took that. I easily took that. I looked at the room, went in, okay, it needs to be painted, it needs to be furnished, it needs to be cleaned. I'm down to do this project. She texted him that night. Me and him got into contact that night, organized my first and last deposit, signed the paperwork. Within 2 days, I was ready to move in. We got all the paperwork and stuff sorted a couple days before, or a week before June. Within that week period, I started my official lease in June, but he let me start, cleaning, renovating, changing things up before, because he wasn't planning to do anything with it and I was planning to do like painting. I had my stuff stay where it originally was in the one bedroom while I got to furnish and clean my new place. As soon as June 1st hit, I officially moved in. I had everything furnished by that point. I had furniture still from the first place I moved into in Ontario. That stuff was so gracefully stored at a friend's at the time in their basement for as long as it needed. I'm really grateful that it stayed in storage for 7 months. A thing where I had to go pick it up and then bring it to the new place, which I also had more help with a truck of theirs at where my stuff was being stored. It's really great to have help. So much help during all this moving. Overwhelming, but to have people kind of be like, no, we got you during that time, it was just... When I got back from the vacation, he said he already knew that I was planning to move out. Me going on vacation without him was the inkling, and I told him he wasn't wrong. Said it's time just for me to be in my own room. Like, it's just time. One of my proudest moments, honestly, it's the first place I got on my own and formally paid rent to a landlord. First place I ever moved to on my own. technically was in Calgary with my partner at the time. Yes, it was on our own. This one was on my own, directly to a landlord. Cool, it felt nice. Moving from Sterling Street in Hamilton, 2021. We had just signed a year lease for a renewal before having a full-out war with the roommates. There was a huge parking and entitlement issue that was built up over the year of staying there. And there was this one final straw, one friend at the time and I had, but we are fighting with the roommates. We can't live here for another year. This argument with the roommates was actually the same day as my first ever physical abusive situation with a partner. My room door broke down. My roommates were genuinely concerned of my well-being, that they called my friend from their hangout to like come to the house. It was really loud. So many emotions flowing for me that day that I just wanted to cut everything that I felt like was going wrong. Yet at the same time, I didn't cut the relationship. After the abuse happened, I stayed. I was back to the house. Basically told the landlord that we're gonna cut the year lease. We're really sorry that we just signed one. Right from there, we started apartment hunting. Took the first one that we aesthetically liked. That was what we thought okay priced. Way over our budget for both of us, by the way. Jumping from rent that we were paying rent at the student house, $500. The apartment that we were looking at and we did move into was $1,000 each. It was double of what we were already paying. It was manageable for me, but it was not a situation where it was easy to save at all. But at the time, I was in such a fuck it moment that I was like, you know, I can make anything work. It's fine, let's go. I felt like I had a flow of moving that I was like, let's just fucking go. We did have to pay a fee to break the contract. When it comes to the house itself and why that was also an easy decision, because I don't even remember really saying bye to anybody on my last day. I think it was just like as soon as we could leave, we just did. I never grew close with anyone else in the house except for the roommate that I moved out with. Everyone else was just a different vibe. In retrospect of my working schedule and then their school schedule, it never aligned. They would host gatherings at the house on the weekends, but I would work weekend mornings, and that's not their fault. It wasn't their fault at all, you know. It's their student house. It was also time for me to leave in that kind of way. I really did enjoy the room for how unique it was. Interesting sunroom, I'll never forget it. I still feel inspired for the way the height was and how I decorated it. That house also didn't have any common spaces. I was living with 8 other people. All 3 floors were just strictly bedrooms or the washroom. Each floor had its own washroom, which was great. The house itself was definitely giving old, dungy. It's okay, it's just a student house. People go in and out of this anyways. There's no point in going so hard with renovation. The only way we kind of made a common space was just strictly out in the backyard. The backyard had a cute deck for, you know, warmer days, but we be in Canada. The kitchen area, there was like a dining table that seated 4 people, and that was the only other common space. Mostly hung out in each other's rooms, and when I do say we, I did hang out by myself a lot. If my roommate and I weren't hanging out, I was by myself a lot, while like my roommate did associate with all the other folks. I think it was just because like I was the only non-student, so I just didn't feel relatable. Problems, we had different problems going on. There is a fond memory I have at that house. This one day we all had a roommate night and we made a PowerPoint. We did a PowerPoint night. So it was definitely inspired by a TikTok. We were all prepping for a week about the different PowerPoints. We gave a theme just so we weren't like doing the exact same ones to see what people did. There was someone who rated their ex in terms of in bed and just in general. I did a PowerPoint on different vibrators. Overall, this place wasn't bad. I think it was just I grew out of it quick. This wasn't gonna work out a long term anyways, and with living with 8 other people, mainly girls, like there was only 2 other guys, and those 2 guys were the boyfriends of some of the girls. It was a lot. However, I do like to think of this as my college experience that I never got. When I did go to college, I just straight college home. I didn't do any fun experiences and go party and have those fun times. I didn't even know we had a college area in Calgary. College I went to was just like right off of the train station, so I didn't have to really do much. Random side quest, check. One of the most lighthearted places I left, even though the catalyst was an argument. We'll take it. We'll take it. Leaving Forest Ave in Hamilton in October 2021. These were one of the places that I got quick, but left as quick. This was a huge lesson of instant gratification. There's not much planning beforehand. It was a complete rush from leaving that student house. This was a little bit after adjustments to businesses opening up again. At the same time, or around the same time that I got this new apartment, I also got a new job closer to the apartment as well. The whole area felt aligned to me. Going back into downtown, but in a different area of downtown, it almost felt like an upgrade from where I was. The apartment building that we moved into was one of those buildings that were one of those old downtown apartments, but just slapped on with those modern appliances, clean, everything white, tiled look, put everything new on top of it. My unit specifically was the most newest unit of the whole building because a year prior to us moving in, there was 2 or 1 units below that unit that we moved into, and then the flame just went up and kind of burned that unit as well. There was a lot of flame damage. That's why it looks super new. You can tell there were people living there for decades before, but with the newer people coming in, they wanted to sell them on like the high quality stuff that they had. Within a month moving there, we noticed that things were definitely not as they seemed. Weekly water shutoffs that were just scheduled, but sometimes there would just be random water shutoffs in general, or when the water would come back on, the water would be coming back on with sediment, brown looking. We lived on the 9th floor. Tell me how there was still a rat problem for us. It wasn't severe. It happened later, closer to moving. We would see rats in the hallway, and when it would actually be in our apartment, it came from the vents. Also coming from the vents, this part was nasty. I thought we had a fly issue, just having a balcony and, you know, windows open and stuff. When you're up that high, you don't have that many flying bug issues because they can't reach that high, flying in the winds and shit, you know? So when bugs are in your apartment and you're that high up, it means it's coming from the inside. We observed one day that there were tons of flies coming out from the vents. It was so nasty. How are rats and flies coming out of the vents? Elevator shutoffs were completely brutal living on the 9th floor, especially on grocery runs. They did sell us on how everything looked. Coming from a student house that was run down, dirty, coming into a spacious, newer looking place. Oh yeah, it looks pretty, it's good enough. So when things were starting to be a little bit rocky between the roommate and I, because at this time, she and her ex-boyfriend had gone back together. I didn't want to be such a hard ass about it. I was like, oh, you know what? People change. I'll give them a chance. New and damaging happening to the building. I was like, these are omens to not really stay this long. On the 9th floor, across the hallway, a water pipe ruptured in the unit and dropped down 3 floors. From the 6th floor, you can see upwards to the 9th floor. The building themselves didn't notify any of the people living in there. No tenants. We only found out from talking to our neighbors. The neighbors told each other. The building didn't want anyone else to know. That part was the ultimate red flag. I was like, you guys don't give a fuck. You only want to keep up appearances, but people can literally die. How are you saying that before we moved in, there was a huge fire stove thing? And of course, I can't just entirely blame that on the apartment. It could have been the person themselves. Though the water pipe rupture, I don't know. Back to my roommate having a partner. Before moving out with them, because this was something we talked about while we were living in the student house throughout the year, we're like, oh, it'd be nice to like move out, just maybe us two. But I always held a boundary with her, saying I would never be her roommate just herself if she was with the partner that she was with. I know that sounds very controlling. For me, I used to surround myself with a lot of people who were in toxic on and off relationships, and I would be that person mediating always. If it wasn't mediating between the two, it was always consoling my friend. It becomes really tiring. If you're on the other side of not doing that toxic on and off, it's so draining. You're watching your friend choose this life. At one point, you're like, okay, it's obviously not the guy, or not even just the guy, it's not even the partner's fault anymore. My friend is constantly choosing to be in that. Despite how many breakups they've had and how many times I've heard her say, oh yeah, I'm on my own, bad bitch, I'm gonna look for someone else, I'm gonna start something new. You know how many times you need to hear that before you're finally like, I need to cut it off with my friend? That was the situation I was in with it. I can guarantee I've been in fights and arguments with my past partners where we probably need a couple hours, maybe even a full day away from each other, but I've never ever done the on and off breakup thing ever since dating. When I saw other people do it, back then I couldn't empathize. Now I'm more like, okay, it's choices. During that time, it was a time I couldn't empathize because I just felt like there's just so many people in the world. Why are you hooked on a person who doesn't even like you that much? I've seen much gentler and kinder people like my roommate, and at the end of the day, she just felt like she couldn't vibe with him. And then behind my back, one of my other friends told me that she doesn't think she'll ever actually leave that ex. She loves the toxicity. And because I was living with her, they told me that. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, you never really wanted to try to be without him. It seemed like fucking a fake thing the whole time. I wasn't gonna get dragged into it, hell no. It wasn't even just like a toxic on and off thing. Personally, I just didn't, and this could be a controlling thing, and I'm sorry for that, but at the time, this is just, I'm being so transparent with how I felt. I just didn't want someone who was an alcoholic before 20 to be a partner for her. She was in university. She was doing things for her life. She was the eldest of her siblings. She has responsibilities and she knows how to be a responsible person. But he, I felt, was taking advantage of that. She didn't know her worth. She would indulge in that. And you know, at that point, like, you can want the best for someone so bad, but if they don't want it, they don't want it. How we turned it out to be really sour. I was inviting her to my serving job because I was making a lot at my serving job, and her serving job, she wasn't making anything, and she would come home complaining every day. She wouldn't go there. I had built a really good relationship with the manager at the time where he was asking me, where is your roommate? I want to see her. I'm pretty sure I will hire her. It's just the saddest thing. I was like, okay, I'm giving her options to see a way out of the things she's constantly complaining about, but she won't do it. And at this point, I won't force it. Little did I know that as I was away in Calgary, because at one point in the summer, I found out my grandpa had a stroke, and then I went to go to Calgary, visit him for a week. I came back. My roommate and her ex had gotten back together at this point. He was clearly staying over. Her room reeked of alcohol. Oh, I wonder how long it took for it to even already start to smell like that. I can just pass your room and it just stinks. How long was it like that? The whole time since I left for Calgary. Already had booked a flight to go back to Calgary, and this was the original date. And it was much needed because my grandpa was seeing his last days. I went back to Calgary. And when I came back from Calgary, that was after my grandpa's funeral. I was already going through a really fucking hard time. Obviously, you don't ever expect your family members to die. That year, I just felt like I was already going through so many changes before his passing. His passing just felt so sudden because I thought I was doing better in my life. So sad because the last few years, he saw me. I was my most depressed. Really excited to see him again in a more happier state. When I was starting to get happy, that's when he passed. When I came back from the funeral and I saw that her partner was basically moved in, I was so exhausted. I remember feeling so exhausted and drained that, for lack of better terms, like, things weren't going my way. The place that I called my home feels intruded in. I don't have a safe place I feel like I can cry. I just found out I was pregnant. I wanted to have an abortion right away. I was just going through so many things that I felt like I had a fucking breakdown. While I was pregnant, waiting for an abortion, I knew that I wanted to part from her. Really rough being sick and then hearing his voice. Like, At that point, I knew I just didn't like him. Anything he did, like, I just wouldn't fuck with at all. It felt like she was choosing that over me. I had no more tolerance. A time in my life where I was super prideful. I couldn't fuck with it after the abortion, leaving my job. There was just so many losses that I was in a mood to just cut all the bridges that I wanted, burn everything down, start fresh, start new. My best friend at the time, it wasn't her, he told me during one of my really sad moments when I was in pain, he'll be there for me. I can start fresh with him and live with him. He got me. He can see that I'm having a hard time opening up to anybody and that he'll be there for me. The craziest moment, because I've never heard anybody speak like that to me before. I never had anybody sit me down, make me look at them and say I can trust them. When my best friend at the time did that, and after my grandpa, after the abortion, after everything, I was like, holy fuck, my partner at the time is not even fighting this hard for me. At least someone is. Okay, I'm gonna make it work with him. During a transition where he wanted to move out as well, we both went a little bit fucking impulsive, gung-ho about it. We're like, oh my god, we're gonna move out together by next month. Started arranging papers to leave the apartment before even finding a new place, and that's and that's the part that fucked me up. I was in such a hurry and such a rush to break and burn bridges with that roommate and that apartment that I was rushing the fuck out of myself. When it was nearing the time to move out and we still didn't have a place, oh gosh, that's exactly how me and my best friend at the time ended up moving in with my partner at the time. And yes, I had the abortion already. Yes, I had the losses already. I already knew that the relationship with him was tanking. I couldn't see him as someone to be a father for my kids. From that, it was just a spiral of like, oh, what the fuck am I doing? A lot of what kept me in that relationship at the time, thinking I can save him emotionally, past traumas. I felt like I could be the one who could help him. In the time that we got into a relationship, I felt like he was the only one who understood me on an emotional level. I held on to that. My friends, I found, still didn't understand me on an emotional level. If I were to let go of the one person I felt like did, what does that mean for me? This was a time where I didn't know how to be myself, be by myself. Between the abortion and when we broke up, that was 3 months. Not knowing what I deserved, honestly. But because I'm really good at starting over, I did all the paperwork for us to leave the apartment myself. I just had her sign things, but I was the one who went to the office. I talked to the bank. I made sure we were able to leave early because we signed a year lease. I made sure we were able to leave by 6 months because of how adamant I was that they didn't tell us anything about the building. In a way, being very aggressive, I was like, if you're not gonna let us leave, I'm gonna tell everybody what's happening in this building. Okay, just fucking let her leave quietly. I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Every time I went into the office to do more paperwork, there were new people trying to leave. I remember the day moving out, I didn't say bye to this roommate. It was while she was at work. Made sure her stuff was out of the apartment, made sure my stuff was out of the apartment, didn't see each other much after that. When I moved into the new place, we didn't continue our connection. I didn't want to continue the connection. It was another connection that was gonna hold me back. In the past, because I said I was really prideful, if I felt a lot of disrespect, and you know, I can tolerate some disrespect, dish some stuff out to me, I'm like, okay, you don't know who I am. But it's like, when it's pattern that you're just straight disrespectful, I've told you many times you're being disrespectful and it's hurting my feelings, and you still do it multiple times after that, I will cut the connection. I will cut the connection so clean as if I never even fucking knew you. I never understood why I had to feel bad for cutting off people who disrespected me so much. It's not just disrespect, oh, I'm sensitive, I'm gonna hide in the corner and not be your friend again. This is me coming to you, you're hurting my feelings, you're disrespecting me. Watch you do it a couple more times. Mention it again, you still do it a couple more times. At this point, you do it 10 times with me telling you it's impacting me. You are not mindful, you don't care. Why the fuck do I have to care then? I don't like being treated like I'm the only one who has to carry the standard to treat people good. No. If I'm expected to come correct, you are expected to come correct. Now, granted, we can all make mistakes, but if I'm the only one who is held on a higher standard to be good, to be morally correct or whatever, no. I understand how burning bridges like that has impacted healing that I had to do in the present and like this year, learning how to actually have conversations about departing. I can have those conversations now, which I'm grateful to see these past reflections on how I left these houses. I didn't know how to speak up for myself. I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't know how to just cleanly be like, okay, this connection is not for me, goodbye. Back then, it was very much a lot of expectations going around for a lot of things. There was me holding them towards other people, but ultimately there was so many expectations of myself to have my shit together. That's how I left Forest Avenue. This was more dramatic than leaving the student house because I felt like it was a little bit more personal. We live and we learn. Moving from Upper Mountain in Hamilton in July 2022. This was the most beautiful house I've ever lived in, and I couldn't appreciate it. I moved into this house with my partner at the time and my best friend at the time. We moved in beginning of November. We broke up by the end of November. I truly didn't know he was an alcoholic. Before moving in together, we lived cities apart. We mostly saw each other on the weekends, and by the time it was the weekends, I also was in sometimes a celebratory mood, so when I would see him taking shots, I just thought that was normal. I didn't think he was doing it absolutely every day. The awareness to the emotional abuse that I was going through at the time was very much heightened after moving in together. I stopped drinking alcohol myself, so it was very obvious to know when other people were under the influence. This made my friends at the time think I was also rejecting them too. When my ex and I had broken up, when my best friend and I basically also had a breakup, any other friends I had after that, they all kind of just banded together, iced me out after all the times I said no to drinking with them. They were like, okay, we'll just drink together then. We'll bond, talk shit. By January, I felt like I had no one. The last person I called my best friend, to this day as well, when I saw her choose to hang out with my roommates behind my back more than just hanging out with me. And it was never a case where I ever wanted people in my life at the time to choose a side between my roommates at the time and me. Yet when it was just very clear in actions that's what was happening, it broke my heart a little. There was actually a very interesting incident where I went to Bayfront, and I loved going to Bayfront, just chilling in the parking lot with a really perfect view of the water. In this moment, I was pretty sad. I was in a really reflective mode. I had no idea what I wanted to do about anyone in my life. I felt very trapped. I didn't even know how to make new friends. I asked the universe for a sign, and next thing you know, I see her rollerblading with them on the side. I think that's my answer. I have no one. It became so much on me mentally and emotionally when everybody seemed to get close and then drink so much at my house with the roommates, and I would hear my name be brought up when they were really drunk, forgetting that I was even in the house. So toxic. Would they would remember what they said? Maybe. Would they hold accountability for it? Never. It was until I reached a huge breaking point, completely broke. Like, I didn't even know where rent was going. I didn't know how to pay for absolutely none of my bills at this time. By feeling isolated by everybody, I hit like a really intense depressive episode in April. It got so bad that all I could see was an end for myself. Knowing I couldn't rely on anyone else, I was like, what's the point? I told my roommates about it at this breaking point where it will affect them too if I can't pay for the rent. Bring them into the room, and I sit both of them down. This is really awkward because we haven't been in the same room, the three of us, in months. Ever since our breakup, I was crying. I told them, I was like, you guys, I'm really at my wit's end. I have no idea what the fuck I even want to do about this. I'm really sorry. It will affect you as well. Like, I just don't know what I'm gonna do about this rent. And it's actually so surprising because that day my ex and I because we were exes by this time. We went to a park. We did a little shrooms. Went to a park and we had a talk. So interesting because it felt like everything he was saying to me was him, though it felt like a higher version of him in some way. It didn't seem like it was how he even talked to me ever. I don't know if the shrooms did something to him. It felt like divine messages were going through him with the way he was talking to me, and he never spoke like that. I'm gonna accept what's happening today as a sign I'm being supported. Have people around me. If this moment doesn't last between my ex and I, that things are good. I'm grateful that today was really good. That day was like the first time we hugged since our breakup. It felt like a full circle moment. It was sad because as soon as I was able to pay for rent, I shared this depressive episode on social media. It was a lovely Nunu who helped me with rent. I thought the people in my life would be happy for me about hearing that. They very much were not happy. That, oh, how can a stranger be helping you? Why would someone who doesn't know you give you that much money? What did you do for that money? And when I said I literally didn't do anything for it other than say I'm having a hard time, we're really not happy. And I understand now it's a projection about that stuff, but it was really heartbreaking to see that no one was happy about that. I went into a prideful mode. Having that kind of help sparked something in me where I kickstarted another thing. I was very much active in OnlyFans. There was this website, Ext Panther, that brought in a lot of money for me. Something that felt so aligned at the time. Not only was I easily getting rent within 2 weeks of being online, I was covering for the next month. For 3 months after that, I was good. After getting help in April, all the months after that was good. Until July wasn't looking so hot. I wasn't prepared for July. Finances began to have a little bit of a downpour from the high of the roller coaster. Evident that like ex working wasn't a consistent thing for me, but it was the only thing that was going on for me. Food, a gym membership, and gas were the only things I wanted to pay for. Everything else was just stacking up. Calls started calling. Things started happening. Like, oh gosh, the overwhelm was overwhelming. Knowing I had no one to talk about this with was so sad because I knew I couldn't talk about my roommates with this again. When they saw that I was doing good, they weren't happy for me. Even though me doing good means a good thing for them, meaning I don't have to be a worry about rent. When I was doing good, they took it as another sign to just, oh, she's doing good, let's bully her again. Went back to that, but when they went back to doing that, it was worse. Now they had things to actually project on, which was me getting money at the time. I'm struggling again, so that's something to make fun of. I was losing it. When I knew all my money could really pay for was food and gas, I had to let go of weed, and that was a really hard thing for me to do because that was the only thing that was providing me the peace that I needed to be in that house. 3 days where I didn't have weed, ongoing panic attacks those 3 days, feeling so much relief, being outside of the house, feeling the fresh air, being in my car, being at the parks, being in the gym. As soon as I went back into the house, depressive episode, angry, negative, attributed that energy so much to my roommates. I'm not gonna negate that still, but I can say I played so much part in accepting that, allowing their constant negative projections on me to really, this is my household. All I'm walking into are people who don't like me. All I kept saying in my head, I live with people who don't like me. I live with people who hate me. They don't even want me to do good. That's all I heard. I felt trapped all the time. By the time it was the 3rd day, I knew I had to try to do something for my mental. It's probably the scariest I have ever felt on an emotional scale with myself. Before, I didn't try to be aware of what my emotional regulation was like. I was just learning what that even was. Try to calm down was where I was at that time. Learning how to calm down. That's all I even knew. Not even like deciphering anything more than that. The day before my huge panic attack breakdown, I wrote in my journal, the last journal entry before my accident, I'm really scared to sleep here. Sleeping here reminds me of so much trauma. Sleeping here reminds me of people always wanting to hurt me and never like owning up to it. So much fear. My last entry held so much fear about being in that house. And then the next day, my accident happened. To try to calm myself down because I felt the panic attack start, I went for a walk. I left the house for 3 hours. I didn't have any gas in my car and I didn't have money for gas. So I was like, okay, I have to go for a walk. Walked until I felt better, which took that long. As soon as I came back, I didn't feel good. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna shower. I have to try. I have to keep trying. When I was in the shower, probably why to this day, sometimes I feel a little bit scared of my mind in the shower. All I felt in my mind, screaming. All I heard was me screaming at myself. They weren't even words you can put together. Different levels of screaming. So many parts of me were in pain. I didn't know how to stop my mind from doing that. It just felt so loud. It was so overwhelming. I resorted to something I knew at the time and something I learned growing up, and my emotions were never accepted as pain. For anyone to register any kind of pain, to tend to any kind of pain for me was physical pain. To stop my emotional pain because it was never accepted, I learned to mask my emotional pain with physical pain. Be explosive, I would throw stuff, I would hurt myself. Destructive. Like, if I can't have my emotions be seen, let me be seen somewhere else then. It's like fucking chaos. In that moment of being in the shower, all I wanted was for my mind to be quiet again. Emotions need to stop. I only thought I was gonna hurt my hand by punching the glass. I was prepared for some bruises, was not fucking prepared for the glass to break, prepared for my instant reaction to pull my hand straight back up to me. To this day, I can't even fully talk about it without fully seeing the image so clearly in my head. Don't shame myself for not being healed from the PTSD of it, because that was definitely the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced in my whole life. Sometimes I get surprised that I have this emotional reaction to it still. What makes it so hard to talk about this story for me? This is the biggest reason why I left this house. Before calling the ambulance or before even texting anybody, I ran to my room. The water is still running. I'm just so fucking traumatized by what I'm looking at. So much blood everywhere. I slip on my own blood too. Laying in a pool of my own blood. I could feel so much in me telling me to do something about it. I had a moment before calling anybody. I even should call anybody. That's the part that that's why I ultimately left that house, because I don't think I could ever forget that moment. I've had really sad, unaliving thoughts before. Scenarios played throughout my head. There were many times where I wanted to attempt it. That was definitely the first time where I genuinely was like, why do I even want to save myself right now? I thought it was like the easiest way to go. I don't even feel any pain right now. Like the best way to go. The saddest thing. I genuinely didn't feel like I had anything left to fight for. It was so sad because I didn't feel like my life was going anywhere. Every time I was getting excited, it was getting shot down. I felt like nobody wanted to be around me. What was the point of fighting for myself right now? I never really said this out loud before. When I ended up reaching for my phone, looked through my contacts to see who I even wanted to call. The first person who showed up on my contacts, someone I didn't even talk to anymore. They were my most recent romantic engagement at the time. We weren't talking anymore. For some reason, remembering their zodiac sign made me feel like my grandpa was there because they shared the same zodiac sign. It felt so weird that I saw his name first. His name is not like at the top or the bottom of the alphabet. It's like right in the middle. His first and last name. To see like his contact first, I was like, what the fuck? All I thought about was my grandpa. That's what made me call the ambulance. I thought about my grandpa. He would be so sad to see me like that. Just remembering my grandpa kept me alive. I ended up calling my tattoo artist. She was someone who I was friendly with. She was part of that circle that eventually avoided me. Really sad to hear for her to constantly say, you can text me, you can text me, visit you at the hospital, and then to never hear from her again. Really heartbreaking, because I felt like that was definitely my last like attempt to stay within the people I knew. I remember being in complete disbelief. The only person I felt comfortable to call at the time was my ex-boyfriend from Calgary, as he had been recently visiting Hamilton. We were not reconnecting in that kind of romantic way, but it was really nice to just see someone I spent so much time with, type of thing, like in my new city. At the time, him and my brother were still friends. I think his loyalty was just more for the other side, with association of who was on the other side, which was a lot more people than just me. Honestly, I was part of his past and they were part of his present. I understand, and there was no hard feelings why like I didn't really hear much from him. I do want to say, during my homelessness, like living in my car, he sent me a really sweet and generous birthday gift. I'm really grateful for that. I still am grateful for him in general. When I woke up from my surgery, I saw that nobody texted me. It broke my heart so bad. Waking up cold at 3 in the morning with nobody around you. Well, obviously nobody would be around you at 3, but no text, no nothing. I asked the nurse for more meds so I could go back to sleep. I wake up, no text. We're getting into a fight with my mom. Something irrelevant to me being in the hospital was about my sister. I remember finishing that text with her and just saying, I'm fucking done with everybody. I remember sitting there, my hand completely fucked. This is my dominant hand, right? And I write every day. Nobody fucking cares I'm in the hospital right now. I get into a prideful moment. I asked the nurse if there's anywhere I can go after the hospital that's part of the hospital, because I wanted to stay for as long as I fucking could. When they were like, you're good to like stand, I couldn't even fully walk. I was so dizzy from the pain meds and everything, but they're like, you're good to stand, you can leave. I really didn't want to go home, so they helped me go to this other place, a little bit of a like an in and out house for homeless people and also people in like almost an in and out house of sorts. Your max stay there is a week. Like, okay, thank you, that would help me for a week. By the time it was like the 3rd day, it was just evidently way too hard for me to stay there, because I needed something that didn't require a lot of stairs and movement. I couldn't even shower. When I say I couldn't even walk, I couldn't even walk. I was so completely dizzy and nauseous. Kitchen was downstairs. There was no way I was in a shape to cook. At this in-and-out house, you do everything by yourself. Like, there's supplies for you to have with hygiene and food, which is amazing. Though I had no capacity to even like do anything for myself. I think I was living off crackers in those 3 days. Old coworkers reached out to me. They're like, hey, can we help you with anything? I asked them, I was like, hey, do you have a place I can stay for as long as I can? I really don't want to go home, but I can't stay where I'm staying right now. They said yes. They actually were such a friendly company during that kind of transition out of the hospital. It was what I needed. Though they were only comfortable keeping me for like 3 or 4 days. By that point, I felt like I was gaining enough like sanity back, at least. Like, I was able to walk a lot more. I felt like I was fit to drive. When they were like, we can't let you stay. Okay, I don't mind that, but do you guys mind helping me pack my car? They're like, what? And I was like, I'm leaving that house. There's no way I'm staying at that house anymore. That's how I left the house, my house, right away. Packed everything within a couple hours, while one of the roommates was actually there, staying in his room. I just kept packing. Remember leaving the house and I was like, I have no idea where I'm sleeping. I went to Bayfront, had a moment with a new friend I met through Bumble. Me and her were recently hanging out through my transitions, and it was nice to have someone refreshing to talk to while I was going through a transition like that. Just talking to her in the park, she's like, what are you gonna do? I don't know, man. I go on Instagram, I see like friends posted on my story. These friends are from Calgary, but they're in Toronto for school. I asked them like, hey, I give them a little bit of a spiel about my situation. I asked them if they have a couch for a little bit. They said yes for a couple days. That's where I went. I couldn't even think about long-term at all. I knew as soon as I was leaving Hamilton and driving towards Toronto, there was no way I could think of anything long term for my living situation because, first of all, my money was fucked. My paperwork to even get a new place, fucked. There was no way I was like, oh yeah, let me like make all these promises to people and not know where my money's coming from and all that. So I was like, no, I'm just gonna have to do this couch to couch thing. Let's just see how long I can do it for. I remember my iconic video, like it's coming to mind right now, about leaving Hamilton, and I was just so fucking hyped. I'm fucking doing it. I'm doing it. That moment being the first moment where I was like, I'm jumping into the unknown. Like I didn't feel that way when I left Calgary because I knew where I was sleeping. I knew that I would figure it out, like secure way. This time I had no idea about my security. Expect that I was gonna sleep in my car? No. Truly, I thought I would have a couch to stay until I was able to have a place on my own. Now that this is so overdue and long time passed, and now I can laugh about this because I can truly laugh about this now. I couldn't laugh about this before, and I definitely could not bring it up out of a prideful thing. This is the first time I'm actually saying this out loud on any social media platforms. Another big reason why I felt it was okay for me to fuck out of that house, do couch to couch for as long as I can until I get my own place. A week before that accident, I was doing something with ex-work online. There had been someone who said they sent a lot of money, and this is the most I've ever seen anyone offer me, potentially in my PayPal kind of thing. Fair warning, and I should have asked for a smaller amount just to see if like it would even go through for him, because he did show proof that he sent huge amounts before. Though that kind of huge amount into my new PayPal account, it would have looked weird regardless. Heat of the moment, we're doing this thing, whatever. I'm in the hospital and I'm still waiting for this money. But I'm starting to have this thing where I'm like, oh wait, I'm anticipating some money. If I take this leap into the unknown, I'm just gonna get that money. I'm gonna be covered. I'm gonna be okay. So that was actually another reason why I felt like it was okay for me to just leave the house. It was very traumatic for me to even think of sleeping in that room again for the reasons I mentioned. Truly felt like I was financially okay to do so eventually. By the time it reached the end of July, I did not hear from that guy again. As in, I didn't know where his account was. I truly was a point where I was like, fuck, I'm fucked. That was why I left that house. This is why I left Hamilton in general. How I ended up leaving the situation of living in my car. September 2022. I truly believe my car days ended because I found ways to enjoy the homelessness by the end. Daily vlogs of my experiences out there, absolutely from the day before I chose to live out in my car up until the day I knew I wasn't gonna live in my car anymore. I vlogged 4 times a day on my original TikTok account, which is still up. Y'all are curious on how I truly reacted during those times, very authentically throughout all the sadness and anger and projections. It's on there. There were places I did get to sleep while living in my car, just to give myself a big sense of relief. There were some sketchy ones. The first person that offered me a place to stay was this complete stranger from Instagram. It was a male. They had known that I was active in sex work at the time in OnlyFans, and they were a subscriber. I know that sounds hazard all in its own. Though at that point in my life, I just really was so desperate for a shower that I didn't mind literally anything. When I went into his place, and really not to shame how people live at all, the place definitely gave scary neglect. Shower had bugs in it, had all the dirt and grime. The place I slept, you could visibly see that there were bugs on the bed. Arrangement of why I decided it was okay for me to stay for a week. He worked from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. throughout the whole night, and I felt safe in that. That's actually the reason why I said yes to the arrangement in the first place, because I did ask what it would be like We would be sharing the same rooms. However, when I would wake up, each day he would be closer and closer to me. The first day that he came home at 6 a.m., he didn't sleep. He just stayed in the living room beside me while I slept. I didn't want to sleep in his room because of the bugs that I saw, and I prefer sleeping with a TV in the background or just some kind of noise left in the living room because there was a TV. Second day he comes home, it's like he's sitting at the end of the couch where my feet are, but my feet are on top of his legs. Put himself under me and just sat there. It was so fucking awkward to wake up to that, uncomfortable. He would be like, you could take content in the house. I'm comfortable with that if you take content in the house. If you need anyone to take content with, let me know. It became creepier and creepier, and I could tell that all he wanted was to be close to me. When we did share space during the day, I'm gonna go out as soon as I wake up and then come back into the house right before he leaves for work. That little moment between him leaving for work, he would just really wanted to be close to me. If I continued to stay longer, it would be really dangerous for me. It was more comfortable to stay in my car. Aside from not showering, my car was definitely more comfier. I had almost a full month out there before receiving any kind of help. Offered help around like the third week. I had this coworker who I reached out to. They found my TikTok again, and we kind of just started talking here and there. Asked for a place if I could shower there. She offered for me to sleep the night. So relieving. I spent a couple inconsistent days there. I didn't really spend too many days in a row. Probably slept 4 nights there. It was only whenever she was home. Her and her partner had stayed mainly at his place a couple cities away, where she also worked, which was more convenient for her in that kind of sense. And she would be back in the area and was kind of free to let me stay in her place, then she would offer it. The victim stories that built up over my homeless journey that I did project for a long time after living out in my car, those stories don't impact me anymore. I truly feel like I've reached this point of victim to hero, meaning I give so much more compassion to the victim me, and whenever I see other people projecting their victim, I don't really see it as a anymore, because I did. If I'm being so honest, as I was healing my victim, when I would see it in other people, it would bother me. It was because I would be so bothered about my own projection of victim. I just didn't know how to heal that until I did. Releasing, so much releasing. There was so much anger and sadness from prior to the homeless journey and then the homeless journey that I was releasing, but I can really attune to where I am now, have the healing necessary to stand strong in hero. I remember the first few weeks, the tantrums I threw were crazy. Anyone was just like watching me, you know, when you just like kind of like look around at a park or something and you just like look at stuff. If whoever saw me freak out, I would be freaking out. Like I'd be like fucking staring, like, and you just see me like screaming, turning red, fucking having a hard time. Whoa, that person's having a really bad day. Every day for the first few weeks. It was a nice humbling experience one day to be parked at a park, witness homeless people who didn't even have a car, who truly were sleeping outside. I didn't feel like had any kind of sort of comfort or safety. Yeah, it definitely sucked that I was living in my car, but I had a car. I had a roof over my head. When it was raining, I was protected. So much compassion that hit me after the month that I was like, wow, I have more than that person. And I feel so sad that I had more than that person. Here I am, like, not being grateful for my car. As soon as there was that switch, I was just extra grateful for my car. One thing led to another of just being grateful for things. Being homeless, you don't have anyone to be obligated towards, accountable to. You're just living. You are on survival, but you're living. Everything's up to you. You're back on like a primal instinct. It felt free. Truly, if I didn't have a worry about gas and the fact that I'm driving without insurance right now, I'm free to go anywhere. Really free to go anywhere I want. at any time. I started to reframe it and search up parks I never went to that was nearby and enjoy the small adventures that I still got to do. By the time it hit September, I started living in my car in July. I felt so inspired to just truly make something of myself and making the most of that situation. I didn't know how long I would be living in my car for. I had hope that it wouldn't be forever. I get myself excited just watching other people's stories and just listening to other people's hardships and how they were able to come out of it. Something that stuck with me was do something that just truly excites you. For the first time, I wrote a song. My goal when it started September was to write 11 songs. It was a childhood thing I did. I love how it excited me. I would listen to lo-fi, find inspiration in a tune, make a song out of it. I would go on a walk on Bayfront, my evening walks, and then I would write a song. By the time I wrote my 6th song, I was offered a couch by a colleague. This colleague, I actually learned of them through OnlyFans, through the Twitter marketing communities that sex workers were part of. I had posted about my accident. I was involved with the sexual community to a point where I had regular people I was talking to and associating with. This person who offered their couch, we had been in like similar groups for almost a year. They knew of me and I knew of them, but I didn't know that they were in Toronto. It was actually really sweet that they reached out, they offered a couch. At first, I felt a little bit scared. I was offered places to sleep and stuff, but it was never long term. It was never like 2 days in a row. I had to at least give myself some grace, take a chance, leave Hamilton and go to Toronto, try to make it work there. Speaking on my homelessness now, it's truly the biggest blessing in disguise. Leading up to the homelessness was my scar. If I'm being for real, this was a big blessing in disguise, which led to the homeless journey. So that whole phase of my life in 2022 was so pivotal. Crazy year. It really reminded me of who I am, what I'm capable of overcoming and achieving. My life is worth living. Grateful that it took being homeless for me to appreciate my life again. That's how the journey of living out of my car ended. Why I left Etobicoke, Ontario, GTA of Toronto in April 2023. Indulge in my crocheting at the same time. Honestly, with this place, it was a true blessing. After living from my car, I only expected to stay here for a couple weeks. I ended up staying there for 7 months. For that in itself, I'm truly grateful. I felt like for me to be comfortable there, I had to give something of myself. When I did have my car, I offered to drive everywhere and pick her daughter up from school, would offer to drop and pick her up from work. They didn't have their own car. I felt like that was an equal exchange, to be honest. I drove and then they provided the house. I truly didn't mind doing that because I knew what I was doing that for, which was feeling balanced and giving. The resentment built up really fast towards driving her though. When I drove her daughter to school, I would wake up with them at 6 in the morning. No, I didn't have to do that. I also just kind of felt bad because I didn't like the thought that the little one was walking to school when I had a car. I don't know, when I was little, my dad didn't live with us during a period of when we went to school. When it started to snow, he would leave his house and drive us to school, pick us up and drive us to school, even though our school was so much closer to where we were staying versus to where my dad was living. I just hated walking through the snow when I was younger. Just imagine like the little one, if I could provide some kind of convenient comfort, then it was mainly for the little one. The resentment for the mom fucking just quickly, because obviously I'm not expecting the little one to always say thank you, even though she was saying thank you. Living with her though, I really couldn't speak up for what I needed. It was so hard because I always had the fear that if I said what I wanted, if I said how I wanted to be treated, I would get kicked out. I just didn't want to speak up to anybody I was living with anymore because I was like, one wrong word, I'm just gonna get kicked out. I lost my car after living with them for 2 months due to it being in repossessions. By the time I was already talking to the car people, my car had already been in the process of getting repossessed while I was living in it, being homeless. Really grateful that they didn't try to come get it while I was living in this situation. As soon as I was trying to like get my life together type of thing, that was the first order, and just right away I lost the car. I wasn't driving with insurance with a car, you guys, from January, and I lost the car that year in November. Say what you want, I didn't get fucking in trouble. Relax your titties. Insurance is for bad drivers. Just kidding. I know it's also accidents as well. Bless me, right? It was so sad for me to lose the car. My car, Odette, was the only constant thing I had since being in Ontario after moving so much. Whenever I was sad, I was in my car. My car just meant so much to me for the comfort that it brought. I was driving her for months. She knew what the car meant to me because I was very vocal about it. When I lost the car, I was like, I didn't feel any sympathy or anything. The first thing she asked was, is there anything you can do to keep the car? You see my financial situation and I tell you about it as well. Okay, that's kind of weird. You're not comforting me about losing this car. You're just asking how can I keep it? When I clearly even talked to the car people, crying to them, my options, and knowing that none of the options were valid for me solely because I didn't even have consistent money flow to even get insurance. I looked at her, I was like, do you want to pay for my insurance? Yeah, a car comes with financial responsibilities continuous too. Annoyed me. But losing the car was such a blessing in disguise because I truly didn't see how tied down I was financially to it. Even getting gas, like there were so many times that year that I just struggled getting even gas. Fuck even insurance, fuck literally oil change or anything like that maintenance wise. Like I was just struggling so hard keeping her the last year. As soon as she was gone, I remembered the relief. It was so sad seeing the keys being handed over, but as soon as I cried it out, wow, I feel financially free though. In a new way, it was another blessing because before getting my license at 17, I used to love walking everywhere. When I got a job at 16, I walked to work all the time. I would never walk back because I would finish my shift at 9, so I would ask my dad to pick me up. After school, I would just walk to work. It brought that nostalgia back to me and how much appreciation I have for my own body, first of all. Appreciation for walking again. I remember one of the walks I did while living in Etobicoke was, for anyone who knows Toronto, I walked from Etobicoke to downtown Queen Street. It took 3 hours. I did that in the snow, January, February, because I wanted to go to a crochet event. I could have taken the bus, but that was just a day where I was like feeling a little bit bored. I had so much time to myself. I didn't want to just sit there wasting it and just like constantly just do my Twitter until it was time to take the bus. I just wanted to do something different that day. Let me just fucking walk downtown. Yeah, it was an adventure and a half, let's just say that. By the time it was hour 2, I was so cold that I was like, I think I'm losing it. I was also carrying the heaviest backpack. I was working on a crochet blanket, carrying that, carrying my laptop, carrying other stuff downtown for 3 hours. And then as soon as I got to food, I got there before the crochet event started. I went to eat sushi. I remembered inhaling that. So nice to at least remember that I loved walking. Even though I didn't feel like there was much comfort towards losing the car, nice that she did give me reassurance that just because I did lose my car, that doesn't mean I was gonna get kicked out. Soon after, we began to have our own personal issues. I can't speak for her, but on my part, I just didn't know how to stand up to what I truly wanted and what I believed in. Treated poorly and not considered for, I just didn't know how to speak on it. So I built the resentment. Every time I felt unconsidered for, it would just grow and grow and grow until I literally snapped. Hard too, because she definitely didn't know how to speak up for herself either. Having awkward tension between us, and we're like on opposite sides of the living room. Silence, the only time we're ever really associating and talking is with her daughter. Such a fucking awkward dynamic because like, oh my god, none of us are speaking up. It's clearly getting awkward day by day. It got so awkward where she actually did suggest for me to leave, but I projected on her really bad out of my fear of being homeless. We negotiated on a month, figure out what the fuck is happening with me. I have a month, I don't have a car, I have my stuff. What the fuck do I do? When I had my car, I was like, okay, I have my car. But the thought of sleeping on the street, I was like, holy shit. When I knew I had a month left, I asked everybody I knew. Mind you, at this time, I didn't have any of my old friends. So I didn't reach out to them. I didn't ask anyone in my past. I asked people I knew at that time. One person I asked was my eyebrow lady. She rejected me because she's like, you do OnlyFans. Okay, true. I was a coworker and she's like, I can only keep your stuff. Granted, this is gonna proceed into the story next about dropping off my stuff somewhere else and getting to stay there for a little bit. I'll get into that in the next part. These were my fears ongoing. The month was approaching. I didn't have a place set at all. It wasn't even me trying to like ignore the fact that I didn't have a place. I was stressed about it every single day. When I did have a place to at least put my stuff, that gave me confidence that I could sort something out, because I was like, okay, if I had a place for my stuff and all I had to worry about was just me, I think I could do that. After having arrangements to have my stuff somewhere, I left with confidence and I left with pride. I also wrote her a letter, and this time I was actually detailing every single thing I was holding on to. I do want to address this, but I don't want to continue our relationship. Closure for me to say it. I don't know how she received it truly, because we didn't talk about it after. I just felt good that I said what I said. I know at the time I wasn't ready to also like have these kind of conversations before burning bridges, but she was also during a timeline where I was okay with burning bridges. This was a big learning lesson when it came to communication and burning bridges. I felt bad we ended it off that way, and I felt bad because before things got weird between us, I truly imagined all the ways I could give back to her monetarily, tangibly. All I can think of during that time, even though there was so much animosity near the end, I'm truly very grateful for getting to stay that long somewhere when I didn't even know I had any kind of support. When I burned bridges, my thought process, the fact that I felt like they didn't care about me leading up to that time. For me to burn a bridge, it's not like one person makes a mistake and I'm like, fuck that, red flag, cut. No, it's literally like months of being like hurt feelings, disrespected. I know I didn't speak up on it at the time, so I'm not gonna like, blame her so entirely. It was on me for not even speaking up on it. This goes for anyone in my past as well. Also, before cutting someone out, I will have a talk with them. But the thing is, with me, I'll just have one talk. I'm not going to teach you how to be nice to me. What the fuck? If I sit you down and I think we're actually having a conversation where we're both aware of what we're saying, I'm letting you know the things that have happened, the things that have been said hurt my feelings. This is what I require for me to feel okay. This is what I don't like. Once I have that conversation with you, after feeling so much resent, and then I have that conversation, I'll feel clarified. I'll feel like, okay, clean slate, one more chance. If I see a continuous pattern, like I said, I'm not back to a square one, cut. Even if I talk to you and you did it again right away, I would be like, okay, give grace. But if it's a pattern of weeks, months, I'm like, okay, at this point, you're just straight up disrespecting me. Like, you don't even care to make an effort to be kind to me when I know I'm kind to you. That's the thing that'll always get me. I don't respect this because I don't treat other people like this. If I know I'm projecting on people and then I'm angry in the moment, I know I won't be able to apologize right away. That's just something about me. But I know I will always apologize that day. And that's the part that pisses me off. Like, no one in my past seemed to give me the same accountability that they always expected from me to give them. If you don't care, like, why do I care? That was always my mindset. Every time I left a connection in my past, I was like, if you haven't cared about me for months, why do I care about how I'm leaving? Why do I care about hurting your feelings, about me leaving you all of a sudden? I don't care. People in my past, if you're wondering why I ghosted you all of a sudden, it's because I already had a talk with you about you being rude to me, and you continue to do it. And before having that talk with you, you were already rude to me. What the fuck do you want? What more do you want? It's definitely how I felt in the past with burning bridges. That is how I left Toronto. Leaving Oakville to a couple days on the streets or technical fast food places, May 2023. This wasn't an official destination, but it's pivotal to mention since it came with risks on risks. This was a place where I actually was able to have my suitcases. I didn't actually expect to stay at this person's place at all. When I dropped off the suitcases, they asked if I wanted to go eat with them, share a little bit of my story, which I did. I think it was with the help of her friend, actually. The person holding my suitcases ended up asking me if I wanted to stay for a couple days. That was just such an unexpected blessing. I remember planning dropping off my suitcases, taking a train back to Toronto, then finding something out. I didn't expect to stay at her house at all. Just to hear a couple days, I cried about it. This place was set in mind to be very temporary, but I did have a lot of fear of what to do after. I still didn't have friends. My suitcases had things, yes, but the backpack that I was holding was so fucking heavy. Even to walk around with it for 10 minutes made everything sore. This person and I were in contact a lot. At the time I was doing marketing work for my OnlyFans on Twitter, I was also doing it for them. We had previously known each other as coworkers at a restaurant. She had been the one to reach out while I was living in my car, where I got to stay periodically a couple days and shower. We had been in continuous contact since then, kind of working together. That's why I felt okay to ask her about the suitcases. This whole situation honestly felt super annoying for me in how I ended up leaving. I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to collab more together, since we both were doing OnlyFans at the time. Everybody in the house was. Actually, she had a roommate as well that was also doing it. I need to make money kind of thing. But no collabs actually ended up happening, which was almost a surprise to me because she asked to collab before. I think in total I stayed there for about a week and a half. After 5 days, they made it very apparent how uncomfortable they were having me there. The fact that I was sleeping a lot actually made me really upset. It's kind of hard to talk about now. I took it so personal. Everyone at the time of my life didn't allow me to have the rest that I wanted after everything that I was going through. No matter what, people were so bothered that I would be laying there. Even though I made my work be online already at this point for a year. Even though I wasn't making thousands off of it, I was making, enough to at least feed myself here and there. Take care of myself. People who had to hustle, bustle, be on their feet to work all day hate that. They hate that about me. They hate that I can just make money sitting here. As if I wasn't working with them in a restaurant either. I also knew about that life. They ended up kicking me out. At first, after the 5 days, they sent me this long text when I was out at a park with me using their accommodations of the shower, using their couch where they always like to enjoy being on the couch, even though they were barely home when I was home. Whatever. It was you know what? I get the hint. You guys don't have to make up all these excuses and try to make me feel so bad that I'm not giving you money right away. Just say, it's time to go. That's it. You don't have to make me feel bad that I don't have anything to give. You don't have to make me feel bad for the way that I work compared to how you work. Make me feel bad for being able to enjoy your apartment when you're choosing not to be there. I didn't make them leave their apartment when they weren't working. Sorry, they have friends that want to hang out with them. And I don't. I was literally at their house day in, day out because I didn't have anyone to hang out with or talk to or anything. When they would come home, I was just on the couch. When they would leave, I was just on the couch because there was just honestly nothing going on for me socially. They were so bothered by it. But they weren't bothered by it when they were hanging out with their friends. They would be bothered by it when they would be done with finished work. That was just a projection of them being tired on me. And it's not my fucking fault. It's so annoying. When they were telling me all of this, I was like, you know what? Anger was overriding the fear. And my pride really can get me out of a lot of situations where people are just beating around the bush. My pride will take control and be like, okay, you want me fucking out of here? I will leave. Trust me. Okay, fine. I get it. Asked them for a couple more days because I was like, okay, I need a couple days just to fucking think about something. A couple days passes. I don't say bye to them. I say thank you in a text after I left, but I don't say bye as I'm leaving. I'm tired. I'm already putting this backpack on and I'm already feeling just the weight of my homeless journey come back. At this point, I really couldn't give a fuck about how anyone else was taking to me. To me, it just seemed like no matter what, nobody was happy with the way I was living, and because I wasn't listening to them and living the way they were, they didn't want to help me. These were all the people that I knew. That's the part that really hurt. All the help that wasn't expected reciprocity have been from strangers. No one I actually knew in my real life has helped me unconditionally throughout my homeless journey and then stayed my friend. The people who I thought were my friends, and just to get into this because I'm getting emotional about it, the people who I thought were my friends and did help me without asking for something in return, they just stopped talking to me altogether. I get it, okay, my situation's too big for you to handle, but holy fuck, you can't even ask your friend who became homeless, are you okay? That really got me. She was kind of the last person that I actually knew at all, even in association, that I let someone do that. As soon as I left her house, sitting at the bus stop, I was already getting familiar with Toronto's. I'm familiar with Hamilton's. It was cool to know Oakville's. Honestly, the whole system of Ontario's is pretty similar and the same. You can really flow between, especially the main cities in Southern Ontario. You can really travel between them very easily. That's what I was betting on at the end of the day. Not to really like stay on these trains, because a lot of homeless people do stay on these trains. It just made me overall really sad because of how much I knew I was helping her in terms of her OnlyFans and marketing. I thought, you know what, because I'm doing this, that's a little bit fair, right? For me to have not somewhere to stay, because I wasn't expecting to stay somewhere for free like that, but some compassion. I'm not on my feet working, but my mind, I'm stuck on the screens. I was on the screens marketing for Twitter like 15 hours a day when I was getting really into it. And then when I was also doing hers, I was definitely on it a lot. That's not light work to be doing that stuff. It's tedious stuff. It sounds really small when you're not actually part of it, but it is very like, it needs your time. That's the thing. It's very time consuming. Like you gotta be on that. Very social, very collaborative. Like you can't just be doing it on your own. The reason why it's also a part of a commitment is because there's just like a whole community going on Twitter. It just felt like she was discounting my work. Oh yeah, all you do is Twitter anyways. Leave. No, it really hurt my feelings. It's so hard to fucking even say anything to this day because my stuff is still with her, to be honest. Fuck. This is the only thing I stress about when it comes to me being in Reno. I wouldn't actually mind the fact that I can enjoy being in Reno. My stuff is still there. All I can think of is fear and worry, if I'm being so honest. After being kicked out, clearly I'm doing fine in Reno. They had reached out and asked me to help them with something on Twitter. That's fine to ask me to help them use something on Twitter, but the way that they were leveraging my stuff, that's what bothered me. That's what gave me so much anxiety. Why can't you just ask me to help you? Why did you have to be like, can you help me? I'm holding your stuff. I hate when people do that. I would help you regardless. After everything that happened, leaving her place, like that's how you're gonna talk to me? Disrespectful, so disrespectful. When I first moved here, I still was active on Twitter. I was already still doing that stuff. You could have just asked. You don't have to be so rude about it. You don't have to make me feel bad to be able to help you. Don't guilt trip me to help you, especially when you know you have more power over me. Don't do that. With the big backpack on my back, with my blanket in my arms because it couldn't fit in my backpack. I didn't mind. It was also kind of comforting just holding my blanket like this. I went to Toronto. I just remember taking the bus to Lakeshore, sitting there, crying. Found a place that seemed really quiet. I was truly grateful. Because if anything, the times that I was doing this between Oakville, Toronto and stuff, the weather was great. It wasn't too hot. It didn't rain. It was perfect the whole time. The days were long, so it felt helpful. The first night that I was doing that out on my own, before the story, I just want to quickly say Before anyone suggests homeless shelters and government assistance for people like me in that time, have you ever talked to people in that position before? Have you ever been inside a homeless place before? Have you? How can you recommend that to me when I look so small like this and I'm carrying so much stuff? I literally look easy as fuck to rob. I look easy as fuck to literally do some damage on in that kind of state. Toronto was going hard with homeless during that time as well. That's why I was also scared, because they're having a hard time with that stuff there. Their homeless shelters are already packed. There's mothers there. People I'd be scared of there. I wouldn't feel trusting sleeping with all my stuff. Like, what do you mean? Just go to the homeless shelter. I fucking hated that advice. It actually pissed me off every time I heard someone say, just go to the homeless shelter. Just call the government people. That's what they're there for. You call them. You see what results you get. Promise you, you wouldn't want to deal with people like that. Everybody who's there, unfortunately, are burnt out as fuck as well. They don't want to be dealing with that stuff either. Here trying to be like, hi, can I have a room? And they'll be like, no room today. I can't deal with that. In that state I was in, I don't want to deal with that. I couldn't hear another no, especially from people who I'm expected to have help from. I couldn't. You know, I was calling people that the hospital was recommending if they had shelters, and they didn't either. There were women's shelters I was calling all the time. There was so many things I was doing, and no one asked me what I even fucking tried doing. They were just like, do this, do this, do this. You're homeless. You're not trying hard enough. Oh my God, have you done this? Have you done this? And it actually, I'm literally like, if you've never been homeless, shut the fuck up on any kind of advice. If you can't help someone in that position, shut the fuck up. That's it. Shut the fuck up. You don't know why anyone is homeless, because you don't even know how to ask them. You're scared of all homeless people. That's why you want to villainize every single fucking one and think every single one is lazy. And that's the thing that made my homeless journey so hard, because I kept hearing that too. It wasn't just like in my mind. People were telling me that too. You're not doing enough. Have you tried this? You're not doing enough. All you're doing is this. Obviously, you're not getting enough things. Like, the way people kept saying I wasn't doing enough in my homeless journey. Exhausting, and this was like the peak of it. Actually having to do a whole all-nighter because I genuinely didn't have anywhere to sleep this time. I roamed the streets thinking, what the fuck is gonna happen to me today? All I kept thinking of was, I really don't want to get robbed, please. My backpack was so heavy, if you pushed me a little bit, like backwards, I would have fell. There were big dudes who were homeless, like, I was scared. The only places I thought of going to were 24-hour ones I was familiar seeing. The first one I went to was 24-hour gym. I went to Good Life, actually, in downtown Toronto. I forgot which one, so I can't refer it. And I don't want to refer it anyways, because they didn't know I was doing this. I owed a fee of like $15. I had like $30. I paid that fee. I was like, you know what, worth it to be able to just like stay inside somewhere that I know is safe. Guy sees me, but he doesn't like ask me any sketchy questions, but I start to overthink after an hour of being there. I'm like, oh fuck, they're not gonna see me on the gym floor. What if they come check on me in the locker room and I'm trying to take a nap? Genuinely kind of look homeless. Started overthinking that, and I fucking got scared. I didn't stay long. I think I left around like 1 a.m. Just sat outside of the gym, just crying for a little bit. Called a friend I had made during my homeless journey. This is the one who honestly helped me during my like car days. It was sad to kind of call her during like my really rock bottom moments, but she was the only person I thought of who would, you know, kind of be there for me. I called her, and it was just so nice to like feel that someone was worried. She helped me get an Uber to go to Tim Hortons. I was just so scared to walk there from where I was. The 24-hour one. From there, I just got a coffee, took a nap. The first day I stayed in a Tim Hortons, but as soon as the sun was up, I left. I went back to Lakeshore, sat there, cried. After taking a break at Lakeshore, I went to the library for a while, a few cafes, just ordering one small thing each place I went to. There was a lot of cafes in Toronto that actually opened into the evening as well. Some of the later cafes closed at 8 to 10 p.m. Throughout the daytime, from walking to place, projecting so much sadness and anger out into like the fucking world. I just remember sitting at so many benches and just being so fucking angry. I didn't even know how to ask for help at that point because I was just angry. I didn't think it was like I was good company at all to talk to, actually. Expect another day to do the same thing of finding 24-hour places to rest in. This time I ended up at a A&W 24-hour one close to Lakeshore. 32 homeless guys in there. They weren't together, they were separate. The other one was one was eating a burger but looking pretty sleepy. Then he actually eventually slept. Another one was a little bit rowdier. I was being wary to sleep because of him. I was scared he was gonna just like hurt me. But he eventually fell asleep. And then when he fell asleep, that made me feel okay to fall asleep. I just want to say a huge fucking thank you to the A&W workers there. They didn't bother any of us. What made me feel okay to even sleep there? Because I was wary, you know, when I first got into the A&W, I ordered 2 chubby chicken burgers and a root beer. I was kind of too anxious to eat, so I used the burgers as a pillow. I ended up eating it in the morning though. The 2 guys were sleeping. The workers were just casually cleaning around them, like not trying to even disturb them or wake them up. They were just like sweeping around them, putting the chairs into place. Wow, they're kind of used to this, I think. It made me feel very comfortable. Just want to say, A&W, y'all were real ones that day. Woke up, went back to Lakeshore. That's just very comforting for me. As long as I relieved myself in a washroom, I could spend all day at Lakeshore. And at this point, I did avoid drinking water because I didn't want to go to washrooms as much. I know that doesn't sound healthy. There are washrooms at Lakeshore too, which I did use as well. Giving up. Like, I just remember saying, I give up. I have no idea what the fuck to do anymore. I'm not angry. I'm not anything. I think I was feeling numb. All the anger already went away the day before. All the sadness it's just there. I just felt really hopeless all day. What do you know? It's getting close to evening time. I get a message on TikTok from this guy in New Jersey. He says that he has a whole house. There's extra rooms. There's no catch. He just wants to help. He can even help me get there. That night, I was literally debating. I was like, okay, do I choose this random New Jersey man? I've never been to the US before. I'm kind of scared of their little pew-pews going on over here, which is why I avoid going to the US for so long. He was a man in a huge house alone. Do I risk doing that? Or do I risk doing another night? He did sit on it and think on it. I had to ask him to give me a couple hours to think about it. As soon as it got dark, the fear of repeating another night of that really got to me. Accepted his help. Please, like, honestly, yes. Thank you for your offer, actually. Divine, I trust you. I have no choice. Like, I have no choice but to go towards this because I don't fucking feel good in Toronto. I have nothing to lose. Well, obviously my life, but yeah. That's how I felt about Toronto as well. Staying on the streets wasn't sustainable either. I had to make a choice. He got me a ticket for the next day. So that night I slept at the airport. Sleeping at the airport was the biggest blessing that year so far. My first biggest blessing, I felt like, sleeping at the airport and waking up to a flight. That sounds like such a fucking crazy dream. It really was. To this day, I haven't fucking said yes to that. I'm truly so grateful that a stranger was willing to pay for my flight, was willing to help me in that situation so fucking much. What actually reassured me about this before even going was the fact that I wouldn't see him too much. For the weekdays, he was usually out of town in another state. He'd be home on weekends. But the whole time I was there, and even before I got there, every weekend he would be renovating his house. The house that he had bought in Cherry Hill. Shout out to Cherry Hill, New Jersey, people. I was there for like 1 month and a half. Whole backyard, huge thing. He showed me from when he bought it to what he was doing, and he never stopped since he bought it. I could see why. There was a lot to do with the house. It was an ongoing project for him. And that's what he kept doing while he was there. Physically, there was actually a lot of distance between us, which he did say there would happen. But I'll continue to why I left New Jersey in the next part.